So we love to include a panel on music careers because obviously most of us are piano teachers, but as we heard this morning, you studied what, 3 instruments and how many more? I don't know.
I went on, I don't know, I played maybe 13 or 14.
Okay. There are careers that it's being talked about a lot. So we have invited 3 distinguished music professionals. Keith Bradshaw, very good friend. He's the Associate Dean, was the department chair at SUU's music department. And we were all, Keith and Tracey and I were all students way back. I watched their romance blossom. That's what I'll say.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Truth comes out sooner or later.
Tracey and I were accompanists together in BYU Singers, and she is, these two are a power couple, and she could play anywhere and play anything, and awesome, they're awesome. So I'm going to have them talk a little bit about their background, and then Tami is another fabulous pianist, accompanist, composer. Keith is composer. You play French horn?
I did.
You did. And I still remember that he wrote a piano concerto for Tracey, and it was beautiful. Yeah. Oh. And Tami is does anything and her career has covered it. And so let's just take 2 minutes each and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then we have some questions, and then we'll open it up to you. So Keith, let's start with you.
I probably am a fish out of water here because I'm not a pianist. I did take the mandatory piano lessons when I was a child. My mom made me stick with it for 6 years, and I quit when I was just starting to get where I could play some decent music. So she told me I would regret it, and I said, no, I won't. And she was right, and I regret it. My father was a composer, taught at BYU for years and years. So when I discovered I wasn't going to be able to be a professional football player, I decided composition was the thing for me, and majored in composition, got my undergraduate and master's degrees at BYU and my doctorate at the University of Minnesota. I've been in music administration for as long as I've had full-time positions. I started the music program at Southern Virginia University, was there for 8 years, and then we moved to Cedar City, and I was department chair, and now I'm associate dean, so I've done a lot of administration. I do have to play the piano in oral skills classes, and my students mock me, so that's where I come from.
Tracy.
Well, I was thinking about how my careers in music began, and it really is because I married him, because he did music engraving for different, who was it? Kundig had something going on. I think his connection with his dad and different composers, he was into engraving, and so because he did it, I started doing it. Of course, I'm much better than he is. So I took it over, and now I do his stuff. I make it look better, way better. And so I've done a lot with engraving, and then...
You want to tell them what that is?
Oh, music...
Copy work.
Music engraving, right? Like you see it published, I make it look like that.
Typesetting
Yeah.
used to be one of the terms.
Yeah. Yeah, and I teach a course for our Masters in Music Technology program, and I give them all my secrets, and they still can't do it. But anyway, but then with accompanying, in college I accompanied a lot, and I certainly didn't see where I was going with that. I kind of looked at accompanying as kind of just a way to feed us as we were going through his degrees and everything, but I love it. I love making music. I always loved that more than doing what you guys do. So now I'm the director of accompanying up at Southern Utah University, and it's, for the most part, great. I love it. So I've also done, well, we can get to some other stuff later, but that's basically good enough for now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm Tami Creamer. We probably all went to BYU at the exact same time, but I went a little different direction. I'd studied under several of the professors there when I was a younger kid, from Dr. Paul Polai and Dr. Robert Smith, and that's where I felt like I really came out a lot. And then I studied with a gal in Salt Lake for a while, and then we moved my senior year in high school back down to Provo, and I studied back with Robert Smith, but I had also at the time auditioned for a jazz band in high school and got into it and realized what my ear could bring along with what I knew musically. And I know that Dr. Smith wasn't very happy. Many times he'd be like, damn me. And then I went to BYU and kind of went a different direction and was an accompanist for the Young Ambassadors. I auditioned for BYU Young Ambassadors. I was accompanist for that for a year and got to go to with the first group that went to China and performed there. And then I went to BYU Hawaii first semester and did their group called Showcase Hawaii. By this time I was really loving all the fun improvisation stuff. And then I went home and got married. And I got what I call my PhD. I put my hubby through. And and we had 5 kids and moved all over the world and put him through. And years later, found ourselves living on a little island in Guam, but had to come back because of my husband's health. And then found ourselves a couple years later moving down here because of that. And I decided to go back to school. And so I did, and that's when I met Dr. Allred and started taking from her, and it was just a wonderful experience, and it helped open up some doors that I had always been dreaming of. I was able to finally, because of her, go out and play at Tuacahn, which had always been a dream of mine. And so for about the last 10 years, I've been playing out there in the pit orchestra, and then sometimes for rehearsals. And then I really got into composing. I've consistently taught piano. I've taught piano since I was 12, and so I've consistently been teaching piano my whole life, and really enjoyed composing aspects of things. And wrote my first song at the age of 10. It was really simple, little, but I've always dreamed of doing it. And about 20 years ago, had been asked to write a song for a thing at our church for little children, and ended up creating a little song called I Know That My Savior Loves Me that went a lot of different places than I ever thought it would, which was a huge blessing. And since then I've continued to write and have just finished up a new project. I've been asked to do some composing for a group called Vocalocity that is a 6-part a cappella, and vocal a cappella, I could write 8-part vocal a cappella if it's all choral, but, vocal stuff like vocal, point, thank you, and stuff like that, is a total different ballgame, and it has taken me probably 80 plus hours in the last week and a half to 2 weeks to get this piece together, but it's gonna be really good, especially when they record it and it's all, I love composing, I love writing, I love, piano, still continue to teach. I love to play much more, but yeah.
Thank you. So we'll just keep going around. If somebody comes up to you and says, what in the world can you do with a music degree? Or what can you do just in studying music? What would you say? Keith?
How many students,
Have it.
parents, have come
Parents.
to you and said,
It happens every year. It's one of the biggest questions when they hear their children, and I'm sure you've experienced it.
How can they make a living?
What on earth are you going to do with a music degree? And the answer, the broad answer, is about anything you want to, really. Most people who major in music in college want to do something in music, but there are other pathways that I'll briefly mention. Music is one of the highest accepted majors into medical school percentage-wise. And if you want to go to medical school, don't major in biology. The most accepted major is biology because millions of people do it, and you're competing with all the other biologists. If you want to stand out, major in music, because there are a lot of skills you learn as a musician that are very valuable to medical school acceptance boards. And so that's one area. Law school is another that has very good acceptance rates for musicians. If we look at in music, the performance aspect is kind of the, thing that people would love to do and make it big and make millions and millions of dollars. And Nancy's the only one that's done that.
No.
No, there are people who do it, but they're rare. There are lots of careers in music that you can make a decent living at without being on stage. You all know about teaching, and you can make a pretty good living, not millions, but a comfortable living with teaching. It's a great profession, and that's why we have all gotten into it. But in addition to that, music is one of the biggest industries in the country. The arts in general, I think, are number 2 or number 3 on what makes the most money in this country. And there are lots of positions, from a librarian for an orchestra to a recording engineer to a studio musician, an accompanist. All these things are ways you put together a career for yourselves. So is it easy? No. I saw a meme once that had a rocket scientist trying to work out a problem, and his friend was saying, what's your problem? It's not music theory. That has a little bit of truth to it. It's a hard major. It's a lot of time consuming, but hopefully you're in it because you love music, and that's the pathway you want to choose. So lots of things you can do with a music major, and anyone who says you can't make a living at it just isn't really looking at the data. And I love them to tell me you can't do it, because I say, oh, I thought I was doing okay. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know what I can add. There's been a few things that have come my way unexpectedly, and kind of probably because of my engraving world, but I've had a lot of transcribing kind of things, which is when you have to listen to something, right, and then put it down on paper. And I've done a number of things with that, which I would not have ever thought would happen. I had a woman up in Cedar. She had a really good friend who had cancer. She was dying, but she had all of these. She had made a CD of all of her music, but of course none of it was written down. So she hired me, and I did the whole CD, and I put it on paper. Of course, made it look good, beautiful, and so that she could give that to her as a gift. I've had things like, there was one woman who almost every Christmas time, she had this cute little child who wanted to sing at their family something or other, and her father played the piano but not very well. So almost every year she would throw this piece at me and have me dumb it down for her father to be able to accompany her. That was okay, So I've had a lot of kind of interesting things that have come my way, just because I don't know, do what I do.
Todd and April,
Yeah.
What's their?
Todd McCabe and April Moriarty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did their book.
They don't
Yeah,
read
Because
music.
they don't read music.
They never took my
Yeah.
theory class.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they do these wonderful things, and
Yeah.
they need someone to write them down so that they can be sold.
Well,
Yeah.
So
a lot
we
of
work,
musicians are like
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
and
Paul
it's,
Cardall, David Long.
it's
you name it.
surprising how
Yeah.
many are like that.
Yeah.
You know, they play by ear, and
Yeah.
it's great. They just need someone to be able to write it down. It's a
Yeah.
pain,
It's a pain.
which is why they pay you money to do it.
Yes, because not everybody can do that. Yeah, it's a skill.
That's why you take oral skills.
That's why you take ours.
Oral skills is one of the most important classes that anyone ever takes, yes.
So maybe this question is just because I live in a small town, but I am asked to do all that stuff,
Mhm.
and how do you get people to pay you for it? Because they're like, can you please?
It's-
Live outside of
Do everything
Utah.
for free.
It's really hard in a small town, it really is, because they're your friends and neighbors. And, you know, frankly, she's done a number of things that she's charged far less than what she usually does. You know, the lady who had cancer, it was pretty
Sure.
much a service project. She got paid a little bit because the person knew they were supposed to pay. You kind of have to just stand up for yourself and say, I can do that, but it's gonna, you know, this is what I charge. If you set your rates ahead of time, then, you know, then someone says, can you do this for me? I say, I can, I charge this much money. If that's too much, you know, we can negotiate. If it's your friend. If it's not your friend, don't negotiate.
Right.
Awesome.
I need to ask an engraving question, and this is I have from every student. I kind of know the answer, but I need to say, I have heard it from the horse's mouth to do that. But it's regarding publishing. Why do they have you play a piece of music that's 4 pages long, and then you have to go back to the Del Segno at the beginning, and then go back here, and then switch here? And I know that's because of money, but is there not an easier way to do that, where we're not having to flip pages 500 times?
Yes.
Memorize, huh?
Get an iPad and you scan it in. And then you duplicate the page that you have to flip back to and put it where it needs to be. That, I mean, really,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
so
only
great.
way,
Okay.
is
Then I will tell
to
them
copy
sign
it
up,
that
'cause
way.
That's what I've done for years.
When they ask, sorry,
Go
when they
ahead, no,
ask
you're
me, I say, because when Bach was doing it, the paper and ink, you know,
Very
will,
expensive.
very expensive, so anytime they could repeat, that's what I tell them.
And publishers are the same way.
Yeah, right.
Anytime they can reduce the number of pages, it saves them money.
Right.
If you're making thousands of copies, thousands
lot
of
of money.
pages off saves you money. And if you can make it in 4 pages, or 8 pages, or 12 pages,
4 wins.
it's gold.
That's why
If
they
you-
don't spiral bind.
Yeah, if you do
They
7
outline it,
pages,
they're all-
you're gonna have a blank page somewhere, and that costs money.
There you go.
There you go.
Tami, any unexpected path or opportunities that have come your way? You mentioned the primary song.
All
I've had
unexpected.
everything unexpected, I
Everything.
mean, you know? Because I mean, I've always loved to do it, always wanted to do it, but never in my right mind ever thought, you know, half of the stuff would come that has come. I think the biggest thing for me is that I continued my whole life. Number one, honing my accompanying skills. So that was a number one thing. Number two, you know, I pride myself in being a very good sight reader. And, you know, it was before I really understood that I had a good ear. I already knew how to read. And I just did what teacher said, and that's what I did, you know? And so I think those kinds of things, and just finding every opportunity you can. And sometimes, like, what's her name?
Denise?
Denise.
Sorry.
Like what you said, I mean, sometimes you do have to do a few things free. Sometimes you do have to do. But at the same time, then you need to also set a boundary and say, well, you know, because you have to value yourself. And then people will start valuing you if you do as well. So I just had to start doing that, had to start, you know, some things I would give away, some things I would do for free, but then, you know, just like this whole project that I've just done with this vocal acapella stuff, I am not, you know, I started thinking about it, and I probably made it, what, a penny a minute, you know? I mean, I'm like, oh, but it's the opportunity and where this is gonna get to go. So, you know, it's just those kinds of things. And then, you know, the music writing came unexpected, the Tuacahn came unexpected. You know, my husband's sickness came unexpected. So, I mean, you know, you have to just learn to think outside the box and do different things.
Let me just add, all of these are possibilities, but one thing you have to be in all of this is good. If you're a mediocre musician, you're going to have mediocre opportunities. And so you've got to be good, you've got to put in the time, practice, 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 and then practice some more, which is why I'm not a pianist, by the way. All these are open to whoever is good, because lots of people want to do this. It's a great way to live your life. Who wouldn't want to get paid for music? But you've got to be good.
I think along with that is that we as teachers, we get very comfortable with where we're at in our zone, that we are used to teaching, and I don't do that, or I don't dig here. And I tell it to my students all the time, and I need to take more of that, but we need to be brave enough to suck at something new. And realize that in that period of suckage, that perhaps we're learning something, and that we're growing, and then opportunities arise. But you're not going to be perfect in everything. You need to know what you do well, and then if you want to do something else well, you have to pay a price by time and practice and effort.
Well, and along those lines, when I first went out to Tuacahn, I mean, you know, Dr. Allred had gotten a phone call. They'd asked her if she knew somebody that sight read well and could they be out at Tuacahn. And so she called me and then said, hey, here's the guy's number. I called him and he's like, great, can you be here in 2 hours? And I'm thinking, for what? You know, I mean, and so I go out there not knowing what I'm even getting into. Am I going to play for a show? Am I going to what? You know, and they told me where to go. I walked in, this cute guy, hey, my name's Rami. It's like Tommy, but with an R. I'm the choreographer. Okay, so sit down. They throw open, and anybody who's read the rehearsal score to Mary Poppins might, you know, we're at supercalifragilistic, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah, blah, blah. And I just, you know, and I mean, it was in 7/8 time and changing every single key and blah, 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 blah. But I did it, and I just continued to do it. Well, my dream was to play in the pit. And about a month later, the gal comes to me and says, hey, we've got an opening. They had already had the pit put together, but we've got an opening. Do you want to come do it? And I'm thinking, yay! And then I'm thinking, I played one musical in my life. And that was at BYU Hawaii, and that was only on a piano. I do this on a computer, what? And push what pedal, where? And, you know, I'm sorry for some of those who came and it was supposed to sound like a flute and it sounded like a trumpet and, you know, some things like that. I had to be willing to be brave and try to learn, but yet I didn't even get a rehearsal. I mean, I got stuck in during the show, and there were some terminology that they use in musical theater that, you know, I kind of maybe thought maybe I knew, but I didn't ask questions. I'd go home and I'd research, and I got brave. And you have to, and now I feel really comfortable with it.
Can I steal your term period of suckage? I like that.
It sounds better if you say sucketh. You know, I
I
sucketh.
sucketh.
It brings it to a new height and
Yeah.
level.
Sophisticated sucking.
I have a comment, but I think what I'm hearing, and this is what I do too, I always say yes. I had to say no to something like last month because they overlapped. But I always have just said, I always say yes. And it opens up doors that you have no idea, and it might be doors 10 years from now or a year from now, but because you said yes, other things come.
If you're
And that
good.
is for sure.
Yeah.
If you say yes and you have a period of suckage, or you sucketh, they're not going to call back. So
Yeah, let's open it up for questions.
So my question is, as a younger musician and as a teacher, saying yes to all the opportunities, I'm finding I'm burning out after 5 years of teaching. So what are your helps to not burning out, but also giving yourself opportunities?
Say no.
So do say.
No, you know, when you're beginning, you do everything you can. But hopefully, after some time, you've developed a reputation, and then you can be a little selective in what you say yes to.
And then you kind of figure out what, as awful as it sounds, what's going to benefit you
Yeah,
the best.
absolutely.
You know, you have to.
Awesome. Any other questions? So what would be some advice you would give to music students? Well, we've talked about what in the world do you do with a music degree? But if they're interested in whatever fashion of continuing their studies, what would you tell them?
Run. Like I said, get good. Spend the time to get good. And it's the same no matter what profession you choose. You've got to be good if you want to get into that profession. If you want to go to medical school and be a brain surgeon, you have to be good at what you do. Because I'm not paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars to a brain surgeon who got C's in school. C's get degrees, but that's about all they get, So spend the time and practice smartly, which is why you people are teachers, so you can help people practice smartly to get really good. I don't care what you do. If you're going to do it for the rest of your life, you need to be passionate about it and be really good. Now Tracey can rebut that and say, he's not passionate about anything. And he's really not that good, so.
No, but she mentioned he wrote me a concerto. It's a piano fantasy, and it was wonderful.
Is it published?
It's on my
So there is
website.
a KeithBradshawMusic.com
Shameless plug.
that his kids got him a couple years ago. They set it up for him, and then I try to keep up with the engraving stuff and keeping all the music on there. So it's on there if you want to look it up, and I think it even has the recording that's not very good, but.
It's something a good high school student could do, or someone, a decent college student. It's not Liszt.
No, so what I was going to say is back when we were in BYU Singers, he wrote a piece for BYU Singers. I think you had gone by then.
Yeah.
And it was for 2 pianos, and he knew that I was going to be playing one of the pianos, and he purposely made my part hard, harder than the other one. It made me
She
mad.
wouldn't respect me if she could sight read the thing.
So,
This is way of thinking.
so
It
when
was
he
a
did-
compliment.
So when he did this piano fantasy, then that was kind of nice, because I could kind of play it as he composed it and say, no, I don't like this, or,
And part of the problem was she was very busy and didn't have a lot of time to learn the piece, and she said, don't make it too hard.
right, please.
And so I didn't. It's still challenging in spots.
Yeah, but it's nice. But the second movement I made as a solo option, and it's very Chopin-esque, Chopin nocturne-esque. So,
I Chopinethed.
yes, you did. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. Yeah, but something that you had said about something. But yeah, the advice for people, is, I don't know if I can add any more to that. Be good at oral skills and at theory and practice sight reading and, kind of all those things to have your options be open for things.
I have to say, as piano teachers, you probably do better than any of the other groups at teaching theory and usually a little bit of oral skills. And I appreciate that when they get to college. Thank you.
But I will tell my one scary. I had to be super brave to do this one. We were living in Minnesota, and I don't know if any of you have heard of the Dale Warden Singers, but they're a professional choir. They're not anymore, but they were in the Twin Cities area.
One of the top choirs.
One of the
in
top
world.
choirs. And I had done some auditions for him, and there was a time where his assistant conductor, who was also an accompanist for the choir, he fell and he broke a bone in his shoulder, and they were one day from leaving to go on tour, and he called me, and this was after a summer of being out here. We'd come home for the summer sometimes in Utah, and so I hadn't touched a piano for a summer. You know what I'm talking about. So there's cobwebs, you know. And I didn't even have my piano because the piano was being stored at someone's house while we were home for the, anyway. So I had this opportunity to go on tour with the Dale Warden Singers and play these 3 pieces that were too hard for the other guy to play because he had a broken bone. So they were hard. And, you know, there was a lot of me that didn't want to do it. It's super scary. And I think I had like a 1-year-old daughter at that point too. So I'm in mom mode. But it was kind of one of those things where here's an amazing opportunity to go tour with the Dale Warden Singers. So I did it. I think I'll not live as long as I would have had I not done it. But wow, it was amazing. It was so. But that was a super scary thing that I went ahead and I did it. So yeah,
You grabbed those opportunities.
I did.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say along with what Keith said, not only do you have to be good, you have to be nice, and you have to be easy to work with. I've worked with several people in the pit, some that are now playing on Broadway, playing for the Rockettes, doing all of that kind of stuff, and they had done a master class here about 10 years ago. And that was the one thing that they said is, you know, if it comes down to 2 musicians and one's easier to work with, they might not have quite as good a chops, you know, they'd be close but not quite, they'll go with the one easier to work with. So always make sure you're easier to work, you're easy to work with, that you do hone your craft, and that you continue. Like you guys are here right now, which I think is great. None of us are, you know, too much better than the other, and we always need to, we never stop learning is exactly what it is, because we're never too old.
Let me add on to being nice. You also have to show up when you say you're going to be there.
Yes,
Amen.
on time.
If Michael Ballum will tell you, he was never the most talented person at the Met Opera, but he always knew his music when he had to, and he was always there. He was dependable. And if you have those combinations of dependable and nice and easy to work with and good enough, you're going to be fine.
I ran a music school in Sacramento, California for many years for my parents, and can I tell you, there are certain instrument people that I probably would never hire again for that mere fact, oh, I'm going to listen today. Oh, man, I thought that was next week. And I won't mention that they were drummers, but they
We didn't hear that, so.
It's a different world in the
Anyway,
percussion.
that is exactly true, because there were some guys that were so awesome but they were also awesome enough to be just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I would always pick somebody who was reliable and who would be there on time and be pleasant with my clients.
And they probably played the piano as well.
Yeah. Well, at least not the ones that I did. I don't think that they were smart enough back then. It was, 80s rock and roll. We were good.
Can I just break and say, whose phone is on the floor there? Was that the girl that left?
That is my
Lady?
students. Thank you.
Okay.
There we are. Any last, and I guess it's time. We've been a little behind most of the day. But give these wonderful music professionals three people that I respect greatly, and they touched my life. So go out there and do it. We're so happy that all of you are here, and we're going to go in the concert hall where hopefully it's a little cooler, and have a master class with Dr. Paul and the intermediate students. So thank you.